Cheap flights and Instagram made the world's fragile wonders accessible to millions, and then the crowds began to erode what they came to see. This is Unintended Consequences, Episode 79. In the summer of 2018, Thai authorities closed Maya Bay. The small cove on Ko Phi Phi Leh had drawn more than 5,000 visitors a day after appearing in the 2000 film The Beach. Coral had been trampled, water was clouded by sunscreen and boat fuel. The once white sand had compacted into hardpan. Officials had not set out to damage the bay. They had welcomed the tourism that arrived after the movie as a straightforward economic gain for southern Thailand. The closure lasted 4 years because the daily volume had crossed the threshold at which the physical processes maintaining the bay could no longer keep pace with the rate of disturbance. After the Second World War, governments and airlines worked to make long-distance travel available beyond the wealthy. Jet aircraft, introduced in the late 1950s, lowered costs per passenger. Deregulation in the United States in 1978 and in Europe in the 1990s allowed new low-cost carriers to enter the market. Ryanair began operations in 1985 and EasyJet in 1995. They offered fares that sometimes fell below the price of a train ticket between the same cities. Social media platforms after 2010 let travelers share precise locations with followers. This turned once obscure waterfalls in Iceland or temples in Peru into recognizable destinations. Policymakers and industry leaders viewed these developments as extensions of earlier public health and leisure policies. Wider access to nature and culture would improve lives and spread economic benefits to host communities. The assumption was that more visitors would simply scale the existing benefits without changing the underlying resource. Budget carriers expanded routes rapidly through the 2000s. By 2019, European low-cost flights exceeded 1.2 billion seats annually. Cruise lines increased capacity, with vessels carrying more than 4,000 passengers docking at Venice's historic center several times a week. Instagram's location tagging feature, rolled out in 2010, made it simple for users to mark exact coordinates. By 2017, posts tagged at Iceland's Seljalandsfoss waterfall had risen into the hundreds of thousands. Local governments initially celebrated the revenue. Maya Bay saw visitor numbers climb from a few hundred a day in the 1990s to over 5,000 after the film. Venice's tourism office promoted day trips as a way to spread spending. Early data showed hotel occupancy and restaurant receipts rising. The same mechanisms that increased access removed any practical limit on daily volume. In Venice, day trippers reached an estimated 20 to 25 million annually by the mid-2000s. The resident population fell below 50,000. Housing converted to short-term rentals raised rents beyond the reach of many local families. Wastewater systems designed for a smaller permanent population overflowed during peak summer days. The wakes of large cruise ships accelerated erosion along the lagoon's foundations. At Machu Picchu, daily visitors climbed past 5,000. This compacted soil on the Inca trails and increased landslide risk during rainy seasons. In Iceland, roadside pullouts at popular sites were widened repeatedly. Parking still overflowed onto fragile moss, and search and rescue calls rose with the number of unprepared hikers. Maya Bay's coral cover declined by roughly 80% in the decade after the film, according to surveys by Thailand's Department of National Parks. The causal chain was straightforward. Zero or near zero marginal cost for each additional visitor, combined with visible social proof on social media, produced daily loads that exceeded the ecological and infrastructural thresholds of the sites. An increase from a few hundred visitors to 5,000 represents roughly a 10-fold to 20-fold rise in daily foot traffic, boat moorings, and chemical inputs. All of this was concentrated on a cove whose coral and sediment systems had evolved under far lower disturbance rates. Residents left historic centers, removing the very local life that many tourists had hoped to encounter. Emergency closures then shifted pressure to neighboring sites that lacked even basic management plans. Revenue accrued to short term operators and platforms, while the costs of erosion control, rescue services, and habitat repair remained with public agencies and the remaining residents. Thailand closed Maya Bay in June 2018 for 4 years. It reopened in 2022 with a daily cap of 375 visitors and a requirement that boats moor offshore. Venice introduced a €5 day tripper fee for peak periods beginning in 2024. Paired with a reservation system, enforcement remains limited to a few entry points. Iceland has added parking fees and timed entry at several highlands sites and has funded trail hardening with a portion of the revenue. Peru now requires advance tickets for Machu Picchu and has caped daily entries near 4,000. These measures have reduced peak loads at the most stressed locations, yet they have also concentrated demand on still open alternatives and created administrative costs that smaller municipalities struggle to meet. Some residents note that the fees generate revenue without restoring the quieter character of the places before mass visitation began. Shared scenic or cultural resources without effective gatekeeping tend toward overuse because the cost of each additional visitor falls almost entirely on the resource itself rather than on the visitor or the platform that directs them there. Pricing, quotas, and physical limits can restore balance, but only when they are set below the visible degradation threshold and are enforced consistently. The pattern appears again with any open access digital or physical commons whose popularity grows faster than its carrying capacity. How might current platforms and transport systems be designed so that the next wave of newly accessible places does not repeat the same sequence? That's the case for today. The lessons tend to travel further when you share them, so send this one to someone who'd find it useful and subscribe wherever you're listening. See you tomorrow, and if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at Nara Network. Links in the show notes. And before you go, this show is part of the Nara Network, a family of daily podcasts on tech, science, and markets, each one a short, sharp briefing you can finish on the commute. If today earned its place in your feed, here's your next listen. Fascinating Frontiers, the most fascinating news from space and science. Find every show free at naranetwork.com. And on the website, every episode's visuals live in our free image gallery at naranetwork.com/gallery. Royalty free under Creative Commons. Download with attribution. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.